drugs and liquor. These are issues that need to be tackled with a very, very stringent hand. And we know that we are talking about Punjab as Urta Punjab because the problem of drugs is immense over there. And there are some states which advocate prohibition. In some states, this has already been implemented. Gujarat is one such state, and I would talk about Nagaland today. But it is extremely disgusting and concerning that the state government of Nagaland, without taking everybody on board, has been trying to decide on the NLTP Act of 1989. What is the NLTP Act? I'll tell you that. But look at this headline. It says Nagaland. Cognac CSOs, KBPF oppose move to partially lift NLTP Act. Now when I talk about the NLTP Act, it is the Nagaland Liquor Total Prohibition Act of 1989. And yes, you understood this right. Nagaland obviously has total prohibition on liquor. But why are the cognac CSOs? CSOs basically means the civil society organizations. Why is it that they are so upset? Why is it that the Kohima Baptist Pastors Fellowship, NBPF, is upset about the government's decision to revisit this act? And without taking them on board, if a proposal has come, it clearly means that the NDPP government wants to do what it wants to do. It is in alliance with the BJP. And Mr. Modi comes from the state of Gujarat where he was the chief minister, and there's prohibition there. Now, if there is prohibition in a particular state, without taking stakeholders on board, without considering the issues why this prohibition was brought in the first place, how is it that the government of Nagaland has decided to lift it partially? Now, according to the news that I have in front of me, there has been widespread criticism from the church and the civil society organizations, and like I said, the cognac civil society organizations in particular, because they've rejected this partial lifting of the ban on prohibition, and they've rejected it completely. They have voiced a strong opposition to the government's decision, and they have made it clear to them. There has been a joint statement from the presidents of the Cognac Union, Cognac Students Union, that is KSU, Cognac Nyufu, Sheko Kong, KNSK, Ting Thot Cognac, Temwang, and Ponglen Cognac. And they have tried to remind the state government and the public authorities that it was basically the cognac civil society organizations who had initially made sure that the government bring about this prohibition of alcohol. They are the ones who had successfully started this movement and successfully brought it to the culmination where the NLTP Act was implemented and executed. And that makes Nagaland basically a dry state. Now, what they are trying to say is, people are reminding the government that the NLTP Act was brought in because when unrestricted alcohol was available to the citizens of Nagaland, there were family breakdowns, there was public health was endangered, and there were many street brawls happening, so that means the crime rate was increasing, and economic depletion was also taking place. Because if you're not healthy, and then obviously, even if you have a job, you're using up all that money to get your liquor. And you're not only allowing it to affect your health, but also the society as a whole. Cognac CSOs have emphasized that they are the ones who led this very courageous fight to combat the rampant alcoholism that was destroying society in Nagaland. According to them, the grassroots movements had garnered the support of the Naga tribal organizations, and that is why this NLTP Act came in, which was enforced throughout the state. That means it garnered widespread support from all organizations and all sections of society. And therefore, they have rejected the proposal for even a partial lifting of the NLTP Act, within the Cognac jurisdiction at least. And the civil society organizations have asserted that they were not prepared to face any negative consequences of the reintroduction of alcohol by the partial lifting of the ban on alcohol or the prohibition on alcohol. And in a joint statement, they have said, and I quote, "Our society cannot afford to be used as an experimental ground for policies that may reintroduce the very challenges we fought so hard to overcome." And that is why they have stressed the need for time to consider this and for careful consideration before they implement any changes in this act, which could have very, very lasting effects and very deep impacts on the society of Nagaland. They have clarified that they were not opposed to development or progress, and they should not be considered in that sense. But what they are more concerned about are the people and the environment, whether people are ready for this lifting of prohibition, even if it is partial, or how it would affect the environment as a whole. And they have said, and I quote, "Until that time comes, we stand firm in our commitment in protecting our society from the dangers of alcohol. The Cognac jurisdiction should remain under the full effect of the NLTP Act 1989, and we urge the Nagaland government to respect our stance and the will of our people," unquote. The Kohima Baptist Pastors Fellowship, that is KBPF, they have also expressed deep concern, and they have made it clear that they are strongly opposed to the decision of the cabinet to revisit the NLTP Act of 1989 and this partial lifting to partially remove prohibition. KBPF President Reverend Vezopa Rako, Vice President Monchumo S. Lotha, General Secretary Dr. Ruoko Vile Sachu, Assistant General Secretary Reverend Dongse Sangtam, Treasurer Kekavi Yapto, Publicity and Info Secretary Sankara Narayan, and advisors Reverend Formley Van, Reverend Senti Sashi Iyer, and Reverend Dr. Kevichali Metha have issued a press release in which they have mentioned that this particular act has kind of protected society as a whole and protected society from the harmful effects of alcohol consumption. And in this press note, they have recalled how this legislation was passed in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly because of the collective efforts of and prayers of the believers, as much as, and I'm quoting, "pain and struggles by way of staging mass protests, public rallies, and even fast unto death spearheaded by the Nagaland Baptist Church Council NBCC, Naga Mothers Association NMA, and other civil society organizations," unquote. And what they are saying is that this would be an outright violation of what God has decided. They are saying that this is not only unwise, but it is also irresponsible and very, very dangerous for the society. And because of this reason, it is believed that the government has decided to talk to the various organizations like the KBCC before they actually work this out. And I'm also hoping that nothing untoward happens in Nagaland, as it is the Northeast is facing so much of turmoil, and Nagaland is by and large peaceful, except for the underground. And you have the underground, on ground, above the ground, I don't know what all you have. But if you actually look at it, it would be a matter of concern if this happens, considering the underground. And according to the Pastors Association, the Nagaland, which is predominantly a Christian state, they said that the voice of the church is majority. And I quote, "So it is our prayer and earnest hope that the government would listen to the voice of the people." And of course, according to them, it is also the voice of the church or voice of God. So they feel that some people had said, and before I come to what they think about it, some people had said that lifting the prohibition would boost the state's economy through increased sales and tax revenues. And they said that this is going to be short term, even if this happens. And what will happen in the long term would cost the Naga people dearly in terms of social, physical, psychological, spiritual, and economic deterioration of families. And I just feel that in democracy, you should always look towards people before you take the decision. Because one very important thing that has been said is that alcohol abuse not only leads to health complication but also moral and spiritual degradation, causing family breakdown, domestic violence, and other social problems. And I just hope that the government of Nagaland will not just be carried away. And the BJP needs to answer. What do you have to say about it? You're in an alliance with the NDPP in Nagaland. The people, the civil society organizations who had fought for this prohibition, the pastors associations, the KBCC, they are all talking about why NBCC, sorry, they are all talking about why it is important to protect Nagaland from liquor abuse. But I do wonder what the Prime Minister has to say about it, considering he comes from Gujarat, which has prohibition. Yes, which has prohibition enforced in the state. But having said that, let us wait and watch and let us see what the next step of the government is, and we must discuss this. Because ultimately, if people have gotten used to a kind of control over their senses, over their need to have liquor, and if liquor is freely available, of course, we all know what is happening, but if liquor is freely available, it would kind of break the social fabric also. I come from Uttarakhand, and in Uttarakhand there was a movement in the 90s which gave us the state of Uttarakhand, which was carved out from Uttar Pradesh, and one of the major things was that there should be total prohibition because liquor abuse was really becoming too bad, and women had to face domestic violence, the husbands wouldn't work, and today drug abuse is spoken about in the same way. So before any decision is taken, I think the government really needs to think this through, and instead of thinking of the short-term gains, they should think of the long-term losses that Naga society, Nagaland society as a whole would face if this prohibition is lifted even partially. Do share this video and do comment and let me know what you think about it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done. Now, all I can say is that I will also be waiting for the decision that the government takes, but I'm sure that the church and the civil societies will come together again because they fought for it, fought for this prohibition, fought for this NLTP Act of 1989, and this struggle cannot go to waste just because the government has a different mindset and thinks differently.